Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Just Games in Rochester, New York, where we're into the last round of the store championship here. This is Tim.
And I'm Chris.
And we've got, like I said, the fourth round of Swiss. This is the last one we played, and we are sitting at the top table with Seth on the left playing Tennin Institute, and myself, Tim, on the right playing Noise.
So Tennin is something that never really showed up a lot, but especially these days.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking? Anything right here? We could kind of take a peek into his hand. I see a Trick of Light. I see a Jackson. I see some ice.
Yeah, so I know Seth is one of the guys that came up from kind of central New York, and I know he's been playing this Tennin deck or a version of it for a long time. And what I'm expecting is some form of fast advance, because the Tennin counters give you fuel for Trick of Light, and then you spend your influence on maybe a Biotic or two, and then Jinteki these days actually has a lot of just fast, low agendas. So it works out pretty well.
Very true. So are you going to change your playstyle at all? I see you drop the Imp, but that seems pretty standard.
It's pretty standard, but I want to be able to... So I'm checking to see if that's Jackson, and I think I end up having to use an Imp counter on Jackson here, which feels terrible. But so I want to get Imp out early, because since I am expecting fast advance, if you can trash out his Trick of Lights, his Biotics, that type of thing, Tennin a lot of the time doesn't even build a remote. It just tries to score everything out of hand.
Right.
And so if you can shut that down, then it makes their day a lot rougher.
For sure. And it's interesting. I mean, granted he played the Jackson first turn. I'm sure we're going to see some ice on archives as soon as he is able to.
Right, so that I can't just run every turn to deny the advancements.
Or at least throw in, he probably has a CVS in here to deal with Clot. So if I were him, I would definitely throw it in the bin.
Yep.
But so far, just kind of looks like he's digging to get set up. Second Jackson hits the board. No new installs.
Yeah, so actually, since he's already played two Jacksons, I'm thinking at this point that he's probably pretty flooded in hand, and he's trying to unload a bunch of stuff. And so I'm thinking of ways I can get into HQ, but the thing is with this Tennin deck, which kind of drove it initially, is that the Jinteki Ice is pretty scary, so you can't just kind of face check into it. And so you have to be a little respectful of what they're doing. And so so like you were saying, there's the CVS and archives, slows me down quite a bit. And there were no agendas, so I was trying to force a Jackson pop there.
That's a drag for the Imp. First one on a Jackson, second one for nothing.
That's not what you want Imp to be doing.
No. At least you could sell it. Get the pawn shop down.
Yeah. So we do have pawn shop in, and that's actually I've been playing this Noise deck a lot. And I've been considering switching off of it because unlike, like the other Anarchs where you need Wild Side and that pretty much gets you going, you really need Wild Side and Pawn Shop up as Noise because the rest of your economy is so thin that it's a little, you can operate with less, but to operate efficiently you need more, I would say.
Do you see a suitable substitution in terms of economy or...
So it would have to move to a different style. So I tried a little bit of essentially playing like that wizard deck that has all the cutlery stuff, but just in Noise. And instead of trashing assets, just putting Imp in and trashing stuff with Imp and your ability. And it worked pretty well. But not having that like slow drip of like caches coming in and things just kind of steadily rolling. Like you would hit, your dead spots were a lot deader, I would say. You'd hit points where like you were out of money and couldn't do anything.
I see. Well, fortunately, it seems like you are getting set up because now you have the shop down, the wild side, and some drip econ.
Yeah, so this is looking actually pretty good. All I'm needing is adjusted chronotype, and everything is fully online at this point.
And Seth's, I mean, it definitely seems like he's in a little bit of a pinch. And he doesn't have a ton of money either, which is unfortunate.
We see a celebrity gift. Okay. And, there are two agendas.
And two Tricks of Light.
And some, I think, a restructure. It look like? Yeah, restructure.
Exactly.
So now I know his hand is two agendas and two things that don't hurt me if I hit them.
Right.
So HQ is looking very enticing right about now.
As long as you could break whatever's in front of it. I mean, you mentioned being afraid of some spiky ice when this deck was a little more prominent. What are you thinking now? Probably similar? Or?
Yeah, so I mean, we saw him throw one Kamainu into archives already, and so I'm thinking, things like Kamainu, Tsurugi... that's typically, I know, what was in this deck. Of course, with the advancements, you're expecting something like an ice wall that you can bank things on.
Right, of course.
But yeah, kind of Kamainu program trashing I don't care about right now. And really the only damage I care about is like big chunks of damage.
A Cortex lock would be brutal.
Yes. Okay. So things are looking pretty good. We've got the clickless draw engine. We've got daily casts up, pawn shop. Life is pretty good as noise. And Tennin's still... He's got the Trick of Light. So once he gets one more counter... Did you see what the second agenda was when he showed that celebrity gift?
I did not catch it. It was covered. I think I saw 2 points, so it may be...
Oh, okay. So that was a Brain Trust. So yeah, we knew he had the two Trick of Lights. He had the advancement counters, and so Brain Trust out of hand. But I do know, I know one was Medical Breakthrough, and I think that Brain Trust might have been a new one, actually.
I see.
So I think there's still 2 agendas in hand.
Maybe, well, I'm not sure what the other one might be, but it is possible it's another Medical Breakthrough, and he's kind of hoping to feed one to you.
Right.
So he could start, especially with 2 points on the board, start kind of tearing through them.
So we get the clone chip up, and there's this Rugi we were talking about. So yeah, I was hoping here, since I have access to Imp and a Parasite, I was hoping it was something that I could get through and then bring back Imp and trash out that last Trick of Light.
Right. Do you have an answer to this, or are you just going to take it?
I think he's actually letting the run end because there are 2 agendas in hand.
I see.
And so there's a pretty high chance I would steal. So I think he's just using it as an end the run right now.
I see. Makes sense. That play, that was a gutsy play. I'd be very scared. With a Grimoire on the board, it's a lot nicer.
Yeah, because you can pop onto a Kamainu immediately.
Right. But it was clearly the right move.
Yeah, and I haven't seen exactly what's in my hand. So I don't know even if, I think I saw the second adjusted chronotype in hand. So I might not have cared too much if I took some damage even. Mm-hmm. Because from what I've seen since I've seen his hand and I've seen the Brain Trust, which is the only card he's drawn in there, I knew that he wasn't attempting to kill me immediately, so things weren't as terrifying.
Definitely. I would imagine it would be tricky to shove like a full kill package into this build. Definitely the spiky Jinteki Ice to slow you down, but it has so many moving parts already. I see a Philotic in his hand.
Oh, wow.
But that seems like pretty easy include.
Yeah, that's just in there as a 3-2 in this deck, I think.
Yeah. But what's definitely interesting about this deck is I feel like you're going to have to rely a lot more on the slow dripping parasites. I mean, for obvious reasons, his strategy is going to center around icing up the centrals.
Right, yeah.
So your data suckers are going to be a lot less value than
exactly.
a normal
And there's already a CVS sitting in archives, so I have no easy way of charging it. If I can somehow get in on HQ, since he's pitching a lot of cards, and we know he kept a couple of the agendas. So, okay, so we see there's a Grimoire here, which lets me drop a data sucker with a counter on it, so I can get into HQ immediately. Which I think Seth was a little upset about.
Understandably so.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of Grimoire. Like, Turntable is a fantastic console, but in noise, Grimoire is just so strong for me.
In noise, I still think it's the right call.
Yeah. The unexpected mills, getting more money off cash, and the extra memory is actually really useful. And we go in HQ again. Just checking it. Since he's been Jacksoning, I was kind of expecting that he has been pitching agendas, but just going in to check.
Now, I notice you don't pull up the imp. Grab a clone retirement.
Okay.
He gets a bad pub, right?
Take a bad pub, yeah.
That's not bad. What I was saying was, I noticed you don't pull up the imp here. Is that because you're saving the clone chip for Parasite again, or?
I think so, because at this point, I only have one clone chip in the deck, and so that run was, I think, mostly to build data sucker counters.
That makes sense.
So that I can run safely into these low-strength sentries that I'm expecting him to run.
Okay, and the subliminal makes a lot of sense. The restructure.
Yep. But I've been running pretty consistently. He's only been able to build up 2 of those Tennin counters, or Tennin advancements.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to in this deck. You kind of have to go laser vision, pick a central, and say, especially in Anarch, I'm going to really focus on destroying the ice on this central, get a lock just to prevent the counters.
Yeah, and that's, I think, playing Tennin has become more difficult since Anarch is so popular right now.
Definitely.
Is that you can never really lock out the centrals like you used to be able to, because you can't just tax people when they're destroying everything.
Oh, but we got a Lotus Field. That'll help.
And I am not running the Cutler events in this version of the deck, so the only way to get through that is to keep throwing cards to Faust. And so that's a little unappetizing.
It's taxing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the worst.
Yeah,
2 cards.
it's only 2 cards, but you don't want to have to do that again and again.
For sure. And I mean, obviously he's going to throw some more stuff in front of it. But
Yep. And so just grab Jackson off the table there. So what I'll usually do is when you're playing noise is if you're about to play some agendas, you want to get Jackson off the table first so that things will stick into archives. And so with my last clicks, I'll likely be playing a virus or two. Shocking stuff, I know.
Go figure. Lots to pick from. Yeah, that Jackson was running for a long time.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. I mean, he felt safe enough because you weren't going to just hit archives. And you've been in a solid position, but you have been running pretty money light.
Yes.
So trashing it would be a hit.
Yeah, and that's with this style of noise deck, you often do run really, really poor. You're generally running with just enough credits to install the viruses you need for that turn. In late game, you'll end up with a pretty good stack of creds because you have Pawn Shop running for enough time. And so after getting him to shuffle up the deck, take a run on R&D, it looks like, I have access to 2 Data Suckers, and Parasite would come in with another counter, so anything 3 strength or less I can nuke. But it's a Wall of Thorns, which is strength 5.
That's...
So I did not see that coming.
No, I mean, I can't blame you. I haven't seen that ice in quite a while.
And I've nothing that I can grab to do anything about it. I would need to grab a David or something like that.
Yeah.
But just take the 2. And he hits 2 Deja Vus, which hurts a lot.
That's a really good pull.
I believe at this point in the game, I had all 3 of the Deja Vu in hand. So I have the other one, but I was hoping to use them to get viruses back, obviously.
Of course. Of course. Well, I mean, at this point, what is this Wall of Thorns do? Are you trying to blow it up, or are you just going to dig for the David and work around it?
So since it would take 2 counters per David, and I don't have cutlery to David through and destroy it, I'm likely going to look to Parasite it.
Okay.
And like we were saying earlier, like he doesn't have the money or kind of the pressure to clear out a bunch of Parasites, and so I can just let Parasites slow drip onto his bigger ice. And so I think that's the plan right now, is to try to deny him some of these advancement counters and then work R&D down.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, he has 1 floating on his Archives ice, which is a very wise place for it. So really, he's putting the pressure on. You know he has at least 1 more Trick of Light in hand.
Right, exactly.
Probably Jackson, some of them back in the deck, unless it was absolutely necessary not to. So you're at a point where you really do need to be making a run every turn. Otherwise, it's going to be a tough fight.
Yeah, and that's the thing is so you only have the 1 clone chip, and I think I only had 1 clot in here.
Okay.
And so you can't stop him long enough. So yeah, there was the 3rd Deja Vu in hand, and we grab the classic of Parasite and Cash, which is what you grab 95% of the time.
Makes sense. Get the money.
Yep, so
I'm assuming drop it on the Wall of Thorns, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Get that ticking up. And thinking about it, that looks... Okay, and we run Archives, it looks like, because I believe he shuffled back the CVS, actually.
Interesting.
Because I think... Oh, no, it is still... No, he did... It is still there. Okay, so I was just going to check... to get a runoff and to check if he had left anything in Archives there off of my mills.
Yeah, at 5 credits, unless it's a crick or something, resing that ice would be pretty rough.
And so I run there first so that I can then drop Parasite, because it comes in with a Grimoire counter.
Have a counter?
There it goes.
Yeah, makes sense. Bummer to lose. I think you had maybe 1 Data Sucker counter or 2.
Yeah, I think there was 2 or so. So
that's a drag.
Yeah, so I don't remember if I just forgot CVS was there or if I just wanted to check what cards were in Archives.
I mean, if I were in your situation, I would almost say it's worth it to lose those 2 counters to deny the advancement.
Yeah, true.
Because, once he gets going...
Yeah, and there's only so many of the 3/2s he can score with a single Trick of Light. And so eventually we'll have to worry about whether he gets up to double Trick of Light level, where he can start scoring 4/2s from hand. And so when you're at 2 or 3 is fine, but once it gets up to like 4 and more counters, then that's when things start getting dangerous.
Well, he drops the ice in front of R&D to keep you from just blowing up that Wall of Thorns. Makes sense.
Yep.
But floating at 6 credits, in my head, I'm wondering either it's something tiny, maybe a pup, or he's probably not going to want to res it.
Right. Yeah, and so at this point, I really want to just build up Data Sucker counters so I can go ahead and get through that Wall of Thorns. Oh, but I have Corroder. And so that'll let me just run on in.
That's nice. I like this. You're putting the pressure on him to res.
Right. You want to keep him at low money total so that he can't be fast advancing.
Oh, and it's
crick.
crick.
Okay. That I did not expect.
No.
So I remember thinking that the Archives Ice was probably crick, because that's where you usually put crick. And so this was something I was certainly not expecting.
I'm a fan of the non-Archives crick, obviously as a second one. But,
Yeah.
well, it's nice. I used to like to throw them in RP back when that was the thing. Throw my second crick just like in front of some kind of money asset.
Right.
Slow it down just a little bit, make it a little more taxing.
Yep. And it looks like that was a Caprice, I believe, that he cricked back onto R&D.
Oh, I see.
Actually, it must not have been, because he didn't res it when I hit the Wall of Thorns. And so I wonder what that was.
It's possible it is, and he's just going for the trash, forcing you to spend $1.
Oh, it was a
it's
CVS.
a CVS.
Okay.
That makes
and so I
sense.
trashed it. Yeah, so that clears my virus counters, and I have to spend $1. Okay, so that makes sense.
I see. Now I wonder, did you catch in this video, was that a face down second CVS, or?
I do not recall whether it was. I didn't catch that when it came in.
Okay.
Because this is the type of deck where I would expect 2 CVS, because it's focusing so heavy on fast advance from hand.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And in that situation, that's a very wise play. Just throw it on there. Man, he's just fighting to keep that Wall of Thorns alive.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that once I can get that Wall of Thorns down and find a medium, then things get really ugly.
But here's the thing. You've torn through... One Jackson is removed, and I believe you trashed one.
I think he Jacksoned it back, though, with this Jackson.
I see. So there's still 2 Jacksons floating. However, he's been in this basic board state for maybe 3 or 4 turns.
Exactly, yeah. He hasn't been able to move much, if anything.
And with Jackson on the board, if I were in your shoes, with Jackson not on the board, if I were in your shoes, I would definitely be thinking it's time to start hitting HQ as soon as possible.
Right. So I think at this point, so medical fundraisers gives us both some dough. So I think at this point, I was just waiting for Faust to come in, essentially. Because that's my only way to break a Lotus Field. And it looks like my Street Peddler was a bunch of wild sides and a daily casts. So not exactly what you want off of it. But it's a little more money. And so, yeah, this is, like I was saying earlier, you're hitting kind of that mid to late game economy out of noise where you have Ace up and things up and running. And so you don't really need to be clicking for credits or playing any kind of economy anymore. It just takes care of itself, sort of.
It's nice to just be able to cruise at this point, especially once you get Faust going. Are you playing a Levy in here for the Faust? Or?
No, in this version I had the clone chip instead of the Levy.
Okay.
Because I found if you were going super late, most of the time the game had swung out of your favor. And so I preferred the clone chip for a more aggressive early game card.
That makes sense. Yeah, you're probably not using Faust to close. If it does get to that point, it's probably mill time.
Yeah, exactly.
But I see. Throwing it on the crick. So it was starting at 3 strength, correct? So now it's down to 2. Easy target to blow up.
Yep.
Do you have another answer to that other than blowing it up?
No, so the only answer I have to Code Gates is Parasite.
Okay.
And Faust, of course, as well. So yeah, that's against... I don't think I faced too much HP on the day, but yeah, against like a Turing on a Central, I have to Parasite it. I don't have any other way of breaking it.
Yeah, that's a pain, Turing on Central for Anarch.
So let's see, I've got Parasites ticking down. He has a bunch of advancements on that Archives Ice, though, so if he's drawing into Trick of Light and things to score with it, he can kind of just go for it. It's tough.
He must have at least one.
Yeah, there's got to be at least... we know he only played one, and I doubt he would have thrown that in the Jacksoning, unless there was, some terrible reason he had to.
Right.
But yeah, just drawing up. And I'm expecting Subliminal and... Okay, so he's back in money. I'm expecting that's the last Jackson, or the second of 3 Jacksons there. Because there's not much else that I've seen that's installable in this deck.
Right. I mean, at this point, though, you probably got to try and hit HQ.
Yeah.
Because he is locked and loaded to just score out of hand.
Exactly. Yeah, in an ideal world, I would like to get into Faust here and then bring Imp back and hit HQ and knock out his fast advance pieces.
And I'm sure he's not going to res that Archives Ice because then he's just setting up to blow it up.
Yeah, and so that's earlier in the game. I think the run we were talking about where I knew CVS was there, I was thinking that maybe he would just forget and res that ice and then I could blow it up. But he's played this deck long enough, Seth knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, so we're hitting this kind of mid-game, not really a lull, because next turn, a lot of ice is going to start blowing up. So again, Grimoire gives me the Data Sucker counter, which lets me start the process earlier.
There's the medium.
And there's the medium. We have Corroder.
Oh, boy.
It begins.
This is going to be rough.
And we have Grimoire, so memory's good. Again, Grimoire, fantastic in noise.
Blowing up the crick.
Yep.
And what's that ice wall? Not going to cost you much. I believe it's at strength 3.
Yeah, so
$3.
And it'll give me Data Suckers back. So I only need to actually break through it a couple times, and then I'll have the Data Suckers. Oh, there's the breakthrough, which actually is the agenda you don't want to steal against this deck, though.
I'm sure he has at least, well, if he has been holding back agendas, that would be the one to select.
Right, because you're just waiting for one to get stolen, and then you go. But again, unlike NBN, where, while you're fast advancing, you're really advancing your win condition. So the HB and the Jinteki fast advance, scoring agendas, it's getting you closer to winning, but it's not really helping you in another way. Like, you don't get any benefit from scoring these agendas, really.
That's very true.
So we see, that was the Jackson. So the second Jackson is off the table. And this was me running on R&D again, and I believe he was just firing Jackson to reduce density. And so this, I think in retrospect, was a kind of a big error on his part, is he went to put CVS back in the deck, which gives me back archives to reload my Data Sucker counters.
Definitely.
And especially with 2 Data Suckers up, this makes it so ice trashing becomes a lot easier.
It is possible, though, he has a second CVS face down in there.
Yeah, that is true.
It is. It'll lose a little scary to check, but if you're just going to blow up that Wall of Thorns and then, we'll see what happens with the medium run.
Yeah, so it looks like a Jackson, a CVS, and a face down card went back in.
It's a skinny deck he's got
it
left.
is pretty thin. And so I'm figuring, because I haven't run HQ in a long time, so I'm figuring he has a couple in HQ, but then there's still a lot of unaccounted for agenda points that have got to be sitting in R&D. So I think that is the game plan right now, is just hammer R&D until the points pop out.
Yeah, if he's not going to be scoring them out next turn, they're all in R&D.
Right.
I think he's kind of hoping that those 4 advancement counters will carry him through.
Yeah.
Because really, at this point, he needs another medical breakthrough with a Trick of Light. Well, there you go.
Okay.
So now he can just score one out of hand.
Yep, he can score out of hand, and he can fast advance another one.
In theory, he has enough tools to win the game right now, but he needs 3 turns.
Right.
So the question is, how long could he let that medium go?
Right,
he might even just hard purge here.
He might have to, because it's looking like I can kill that Wall of Thorns next turn, and then I'll get up to 6 cards down with medium, which is a huge chunk of his deck.
He has to. You're sitting at 4 credits, so you'll start your turn with 6, at most 9 if you Aesop something. So that's not a very, against that Wall of Thorns with the Corroder, that'd be tough
even
to
if
rebuild.
Even if I have to break it, I can do it, once or twice. But it's trashing it out is much, much worse.
Yeah, I think. At least if I were Seth, this would be normal purge.
Yeah, and I think that's what he's making. He's checking on his archives to make sure that he won't lose the game or something.
Right.
Probably debating the in this position I would purge as well. Checking the archives. Got a clone chip on the table. It's always wise to do. I think he's checking for Clot.
Yeah, maybe.
Looking to score something here.
That's what it seems like. That's... maybe he's kind of banking on you hitting the CVS and R&D.
Yeah, that could be.
It's
okay, so he adds some ice. All right, so reconsiders, adds a little ice. But that's the thing, though, is with... I think there's 4 Data Suckers up, and I have access to another Parasite, is that whatever ice that is can get killed pretty quickly.
Yeah. Unless it's another Wall of Thorns.
If it's another Wall of Thorns.
You could still kill it.
Yeah, I suppose that's true, but...
do you have any inkling of what it might be?
So I haven't seen much of his influence, actually. We've seen Jackson, and I think that's it, actually. So... I think
you're right.
I really don't have so they were expecting 3 ice walls and 3 Jackson. But other than that, I don't really have a read on what his influence is. So
maybe Lotus Field here? No.
Archer.
Whoa! Okay. Well, there's where his influence is. That's really interesting.
Okay, yeah. And actually, in retrospect, I should have seen this coming somewhat because he has retirement in the deck. And so usually that signals you're running Archer.
That makes sense. but he doesn't have one to sack, so he's sacking... What did he score? The Brain Trust?
Yeah, he has to sack the Brain Trust for
Going
it.
down to 0. I mean, high-impact play.
Yeah, and so he trashes the Parasite that's been ticking on Wall of Static.
Can you blame him?
And what is the other? Oh, yeah. So remembering to sack the agenda there. So, this does put him back down to 4 turns of scoring, though, again, to get up to 7 points versus my 5 points.
It definitely seems like... I don't want to say a last-ditch effort. It's not a favorable play.
Yeah, it's a not lose the game play rather than a win the game play.
But it buys him quite a bit of time.
It does.
Especially now, I'm sure he's held some stuff back. He can start scoring out. You need a couple turns to recover from this.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
trashing the Corroder too.
Corroder.
Wow.
Yeah, so
and he gets $2. Oh
and
my
he gets
gosh.
$2. So yeah,
Get out of here, Archer.
That's a play.
Okay. That was click 1. Correct?
That was click 1. And I saw him shuffle back a CVS. So what I can do is just charge up on archives. And then go through and trash the Archer. But we just played an Imp.
Oh, you're playing the Imp before hitting archives.
Yeah, so this is a little risky. It's banging him not having a second CVS in there, but just getting another virus mill since I want to go check archives anyway.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, at this point, I mean, you're on match point, unless he's probably playing 2 clone retirements, but...
Yeah, so it's very close to... Yeah, so he's probably got another 2 Brain Trust, a Medical Breakthrough, and then there's probably a 3-pointer or 2 in there, I would guess, just to, thin agendas.
Interesting. So are you thinking... How many times did you hit archives? Just once, correct?
I just hit it once, but that does put me at 6 data sucker counters.
Going for the Street Peddler, maybe trying to hit another Parasite.
Yeah. I think either looking for Parasite or at this point Clot becomes really good off Street Peddler.
Oh,
because that's his only way to score right now. He has no remote and it doesn't look... Okay, so there's the Purge. Which makes a lot of sense. So that's another wasted Imp.
The way he tilted his hand, I imagine him going like, Purge?
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah, this was one of my more fun matches of the day, I would say, with Seth. He's a lot of fun to play against. He's a good player. And it's finally a game that isn't NBN Fast Advance or NBN Kill, so I am just a happy man.
Oh, I can imagine. I actually played against Seth playing this deck. There was a store champ the day before Most Wanted went into effect. So I was playing my old school prepaid Kate deck last match, and man, it was a much different game.
yeah, because his ice is taxing against Kate. You can't just tear it down.
Very taxing, but with a constant threat, it turned into crazy deep servers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Faust finally hits the table off of that Street Peddler, it looks like. And are we breaking Archer the hard way? Or is this HQ? I think this... Yeah, this is an HQ run, looking to just pull the last one. And there it is.
Wow.
Okay.
That was it. I mean, you had to be banking on them piling up in HQ. You were destroying the Jacksons or forcing them to pop them. I mean, he played that as bad as well as he could.
Yeah, exactly. I hit some pulls out of HQ. He celebrity gifted early because he needed the money.
Yeah.
Because that is a drawback of this deck, is most of the ice is fairly expensive because you're banking on it just sitting up for a long time.
Yes.
So yeah, the econ didn't roll in quite like he wanted, and I was able to kind of snipe a few.
I mean, keeping the constant ice destruction pressure on.
Yeah.
Just makes it tough.
Yeah.
I mean, he can't tax you out, but he also can't get his advancement tokens.
Right.
Which is how this deck wins out.
Yeah.
It would have been interesting to see, though, because he had probably 5 or 6 on that archives ice. With the money he had, he might have just started going to score out.
Yeah, and I think he mentioned after the game he had Biotic Labor in hand as well, so he was going to be able to score future perfects from hand as well.
Wow.
So it was about to shift into a gear where he was just going to start scoring, and so that was kind of the moment I had to go for it.
Yeah. Well, you had done enough setup, and I think most importantly, you delayed his board state long enough.
Yeah.
That you were able to just kind of hold strong and pull it out.
Right.
Well, very well played, Tim.
Well, thanks, man. And so that's the first game of the last and fourth round. So we will see you guys soon.
Thanks for watching.